Chapter 2. Ashes and Aftermath. The fires of Skarlgard burned long into the night. The once mighty village, a stronghold of Viking resilience, now lay in ruins. Smoke coiled into the sky like the ghosts of the fallen, and the scent of charred wood and scorched flesh clung to the air. Erik Thorson stood among the wreckage, gripping the hilt of his axe so tightly that his knuckles turned white. His muscles ached, his body bruised and battered from battle, but he could not rest. Not yet. The survivors worked in grim silence, pulling the wounded from the rubble, dousing lingering embers with buckets of seawater. Jarl Thorvald oversaw the efforts, his face a mask of stone as he counted the dead. "How many?" Erik asked, his voice hoarse. "Too many." Thorvald sighed, turning his weary eyes toward his son. "And more will come. This was no mere raid. This was war." A bitter wind blew through the remnants of the village, rattling the bones of shattered longhouses. A child sobbed somewhere in the distance. An old woman, her face lined with grief, clutched the lifeless body of her grandson. Warriors sat in the snow, tending to their wounds, their eyes vacant with shock. And yet, there was something else in the air, a whisper of something unspoken, something that clawed at Erik's mind. Dragons did not exist. At least, that's what they had always been told. Stories of fire-breathing beasts were just that, stories. Tales meant to frighten children into obedience or glorify warriors of old. Yet, Erik had seen them with his own eyes, felt their fire on his skin, watched as they rained destruction upon his home. "What do we do now?" Erik asked. Thorvald's jaw tightened. "We rebuild, we prepare. The gods have tested us and we will not kneel." "But how do we fight something that isn't supposed to exist?" Erik's voice carried an edge of desperation. Thorvald turned to the wreckage, the firelight casting deep shadows across his weathered face. "We learn, we find their weakness, and we end them." A shout rang out from the edge of the village. Erik spun around, his axe at the ready. A group of warriors had gathered near the western watchtower, weapons drawn. The flames flickered against the steel of their blades, illuminating something lying in the snow. A body, but not a human one. Erik pushed through the gathered crowd, his heart hammering. His breath hitched as he laid eyes on the creature before him. A dragon hatchling, no larger than a hunting hound, its silver scales shimmering in the firelight. Its wings were tattered, its body trembling with pain. One of the warriors raised his sword. "Kill it. Wait." The word left Erik's mouth before he even realized he had spoken. The warrior hesitated, looking to Jarl Thorvald for confirmation. Thorvald studied the creature, his eyes narrowing. "Explain yourself, Erik." Erik took a slow step forward, his gaze locked on the wounded hatchling. It let out a weak, pitiful hiss, flinching away from him. It was afraid. It was hurt. And it was alone. "If we kill it, we learn nothing," Erik reasoned. "But if we keep it alive, we might find out what we're truly up against." A tense silence followed. The gathered warriors exchanged uncertain glances. Then Thorvald nodded. "Chain it. Keep it contained." The warriors moved forward, binding the hatchling with thick ropes and chains. It thrashed weakly, but lacked the strength to resist. Erik knelt beside it, watching its eyes flutter open. He expected hate. He expected rage. Instead, he saw fear. For the first time since the attack, a thought crept into Erik's mind, one that unsettled him more than the fire and destruction that had torn his home apart. What if they weren't the only ones fighting for survival?